Like, they're not working in good faith. They do not want more homes. They will never want more homes. And it is good that the League of Minnesota Cities went neutral. But I do think it means that, this Minnetonka coalition that just started, and
I like to call it the League of Minnetonka Cities. We neutralized the League of Minnesota Cities, and we got a League of Minnetonka Cities.
We're rolling. We're rolling.
This is a real thing. Real thing.
None of you have the balls to stop this. Stop this.
I've got plenty of time. I have nothing else going on today.
We're in the Wedge neighborhood right now.
Rescheduled. That's also fine.
No, Katie, we've been waiting here for 32 minutes. We now that we have you, we're definitely going to do this.
Okay. Again, I'm sorry.
You're good.
So your punishment is that we get to tease you during the episode for being extremely late. You going to be able to handle that?
I think so. I do have a cute excuse, though. So.
Okay, there's Baby Hans. Is Baby Hans allowed to appear on a podcast? Can I include that clip?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, Baby Hans will be appearing on this episode. Okay, we are here on the Wedge Live podcast. Britt, get your energy level up. I know we have been chit-chatting in low tones for half an hour as we wait for State Representative Katie Jones, but please, amp it up, volume up, so I don't have to raise it while I'm editing.
Fair enough.
We're here on the Wedge Live podcast. I'm your host, John Edwards. I'm joined by State Representative Katie Jones, represents the Wedge and other parts of Senate District 61A, and Brit Anbacht from Neighbors for More Neighbors, who is a volunteer board member they've been doing this for 8 years, 3 years of state policy work for Neighbors for More Neighbors. And we're here to talk about state housing policy and an update on what's going on with that. The Starter Homes Act is what it was called. It crashed and burned, was not successful. What was on the wish list this year? What did we want to do that we didn't?
Well, we're trying to combine the policies that had been worked on in the previous 2 years into a singular bill, thinking that we could get more support on both sides of the aisle for all of the good things that would make it easier to build more homes. Would you like me to go into details on that?
Yeah, just give me a quick rundown so listeners know of the kind of things we were trying to get through the legislature.
I see it as kind of 3 big chunks. One big chunk is the starter homes piece, getting rid of aesthetic mandates, and all these nitpicky things that make it hard to even build small single family homes. The big thing for me that was really important, especially in Minneapolis, is allowing more infill development. And so getting those kind of missing middle housing that in particular is allowing for multifamily and commercial corridors. We already allow that in Minneapolis, but we need to be doing that in more cities across the state. And then another key component is allowing for administrative approval, which would mean that if zoning already says that you can build a building of this size and type here, then you should just, and you've checked all the boxes, then you don't have to go through a public hearing. It can just be administratively approved. And there are many more things in there around ADU, allowing ADUs statewide based on cities per a certain size. And then
changing lot sizes is another big one where we're actually allowing, quarter or what is it, an eighth of an acre?
Eighth of an acre lots. Yeah, because it is kind of crazy how big of the minimum lot sizes are in some cities around the state, which means that to walk to your neighbor's house is like a journey, and it shouldn't be that way. The other piece to this legislation was there's those the pieces that would be required, and then there was a menu approach. So the cities were really insistent that not all of these things that are good for for housing development are being required, and instead there could be a point system whereby cities earn a certain amount of points to be able to comply with the legislation. So those things would include like removing parking minimums for housing and increasing the density within even residential and commercial areas even further than the required amounts.
Britt, would you add anything to that, or is that a good rundown?
Yeah, so I think it's a pretty good rundown. I will say that, like, I feel like this menu of options thing has been a long point of discussion, but I do think that that was part of why the League of Minnesota Cities did go neutral this year, which was a big win for us overall in the year. And, you know, I would say that, like, the minimum lot sizes is a huge one. Part of the things that I've been really talking about is trying to get it so that cities actually have to allow these homes to be sized and usable. So one of the things is that fourplexes or less have to allow up to 1,500 square feet per home in their zoning code when they update it. Because currently in Minneapolis, you know, you can build a triplex, but it's 800 square feet per home on those new triplexes, generally speaking. And that is a 1-bedroom or a studio, maybe a very small 2-bedroom. But most of the time it's just not going to get built because that's enough space for people to actually have a family, and they're more likely to move out to the suburbs than they are to stay in the city.
So there was a component that would kick Minneapolis asset into gear on zoning?
Yes.
Wow, I didn't
very
think.
hard on that part.
Okay, there you go. So I said it crashed and burned, but are there things to take away from the legislative session where you're like, that's great, we accomplished some things and I'm ready to go for next year?
Yeah, so I think a big part of this is that our coalition keeps growing. We have gone from, you know, maybe 3 or 4 organizations that were interested in this in 2023 to now having 41 organizations that are all pulling together and saying, yes, we want to have more homes in Minnesota, which is part of that Yes to Homes coalition. And that means that we are having more and more people that are interested in more and more work that is going towards moving legislators to actually be interested. This year, we saw some strong GOP opposition that kind of came out of nowhere and was very confusing because, you know, most of the time you don't get a hearing unless the person that holds the gavel wants you to be there. And this year we got a hearing, and then the Representative Quam, who ran that meeting, voted no and voted against it. And that was very confusing for us because we were pretty sure that we had enough votes when we were looking at it the week before.
Katie, what good stuff happened? What are you happy about and pleased about from this session?
I think a major win was getting some more DFL support from some suburban members that in previous sessions was not able to support this type of legislation, and they said, you know what, the coalition and the legislators working on this policy heard their concerns, and we were able to secure their vote. I think the other thing is that we're continuing to show that this is not an issue that's going away. I mean, there are at least 6 of us in the House DFL that are like, no, this is a top issue for us. We're not, there's one housing chair, and the other 5 of us are like, no, this is something this is a reason why we are in the legislature. And sorry, I need to pause.
But yeah, we've had significant movement even within the DFL. And I think a big part of that is that we're not going away, that the coalition keeps getting bigger and the support keeps getting bigger every year. We're definitely not going away in 2027. We will be back and we will be saying, hey, you need to pass this. It's important. There are a lot of us that do not have enough money to buy homes because the home prices are just too dang high.
And that's a key point. I mean, the major thing in this upcoming election is going to be affordability. Affordability across the board. And the number one expense for households is housing, the cost of housing. And I know my team, the housing or the House DFL is going to be talking about the cost of housing. And we cannot subsidize our way out of this housing crisis. We have to simply make it easier to build. And this type of legislation is what's going to finally free us up to allow the private market to also help solve this problem.
Katie, I forgot to mention this. Britt asked me to tease you mercilessly in revenge. We are both not morning people at all. And so the fact that we got up and ready at 10:30 a.m. to be with you when we are usually not fully awake until 5 p.m.
On a Monday.
We are not usually fully awake until like 5 p.m. Like our brains don't start working until 5 p.m. And so shame on you.
This morning sunlight coming through your window, it's just so rude.
Yeah, this is not the kind of people we are.
Okay.
So what's the Republican versus DFL dynamic? I'm betting the DFL is better on this than not, but there are probably some DFL people who are a pain in the ass on it. Is it bipartisan enough?
Yes. I believe if that legislation had gotten to the floor, it would have passed.
Okay.
The problem was getting through committee. And effectively, at least on the House side, it failed in committee because of the cities, especially the Greater Minnesota Cities Association came out real hard, and that's why you saw Dwayne Quam flip. It's that simple. It's this pressure from cities who want to have local control, who want to be exclusionary. That is why we can't do this good statewide work of making it easier to build more homes.
There's always a story every few months about a city like outright ignoring their zoning code, going back on a thing that they did because they find out that someone who needs housing might get housing. Like their zoning code might allow someone who needs affordable housing to get it. Like the thing in Blaine where they legalized ADUs in 2021, and then a couple who wanted to build one specifically for people transitioning out of homelessness, and the neighborhood found out, and they do a moratorium and they want to make ADUs illegal again. And they're not even doing euphemisms about character of their neighborhood. It's just like very specifically, we can't have this go to, a lower income family or the wrong kind of family. The cities don't want to solve this problem at all. The cities are the problem, and there are all these groups talking about local control. Is the coalition growing big enough to overcome this political problem?
I believe so. And I think we're going to be seeing that in the newly recruited, the candidates that are running this year. We're going to have a change of around 20 members just in the House DFL side. And there's going to be similar kinds of numbers on the House GOP side. And especially as we're getting younger members coming into the legislature, everyone's having a hard time, especially when you're younger, trying to get into a home. If you are older, you are established, you bought your home a long time ago, or you bought your condo a long time ago, or you rent, you're in a more stable rental situation. And so I think that newer perspective coming to the legislature is going to be really positive for this work.
Yeah, I would say that, I think it is absolutely going to be a big change because, I know that, Spencer Igo recently was in the New York Times and was talking about how, he's talking to members that bought their house for $60,000 30 years ago, 40 years ago, and now, their kids, their grandkids, can't buy a home in their state. I know that Representative Dash has been working on this for 10 years because he wanted his kids to be able to live close to family, and now his kids have to live out of state because they can't afford to live in Minnesota because we just haven't built enough homes in the last 20 years. And on the DFL side, we are starting to see people like Lynette Dumalog, who's running against Senator Ron Latz, actually has housing reform and zoning control reform on her priorities. And that's a pretty big shift for us from seeing kind of these more wishy-washy, housing is important, affordability is important, I support, more funding, but, you can have all the funding in the world, but if you have no place to build it because it's illegal in most of the cities, your funding's all going to go into one house that gets built for one, couple families, but it's not going to actually change the dynamics for most people in the state.
So my housing activism days were back during the 2040 plan activism on the city level. And one thing that is a big issue now that wasn't really back then is property taxes. Like, it's one thing to oppose growing your city in 2018, but now to oppose growing your city and your tax base in 2026 is a whole different thing. Is the property tax argument present at all in the conversations at the legislature, or not so much?
Yes. As I've been having conversations with other legislators, I've been bringing this up because, again, we come back to that affordability piece, and everyone is feeling it, and every legislator wants to be able to speak to something that they are doing to address it. And it's such a clear win that especially when you show the property tax revenue that you can get from a mixed use building versus just a single family home. Like, it's astounding. And the accompanying, the proportional amount of property taxes that if you're a condo owner in that mixed use building is much, much less compared to what you would be charged for a single family home. And it's just honestly, it's again, supply and demand, but again, from a land perspective, the more dense we make our cities, the less each of us has to pay in property taxes.
Yeah, cities are a set kind of amount of land, and they have the same services for everybody that lives in that area. And if we are all kind of buying our services in bulk in a sort of way where we each are using a little bit of that, it's a lot cheaper. We don't have to each pay for miles and miles of sewer line. We can pay for 10 feet of sewer line or whatever it is. That's a lot better for the city, and it's a lot better for us because it's cheaper for the city also to have to lay less pipe or maintain less roads, because that maintenance is really what drives up city costs.
Yeah, and actually, if I can add one more thing here, at one point I had done some back of the envelope math comparing a triplex, a duplex, and a single family home just in my neighborhood on their property tax costs. And for a single family home, it was around $1.28 per square foot per unit. For a duplex, it was around 79 cents. And for a triplex, it was around 56 cents per square foot per unit. So it is really, really impactful.
Mm-hmm. Katie, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but the $165 million in funding for housing, is that the correct number that was passed this year?
That would be close if that includes HIBs, the housing infrastructure bonds.
It's kind of frustrating that we throw money at it to the exclusion of legalizing it and making it cheaper. Like, we do everything on the policy side to make it as expensive as possible, and then we throw money at it instead of doing both, making it cheaper so the money goes further. I am endlessly frustrated by that dynamic. I don't know if any of you have thoughts on that.
Some people have a really strong idea that, if we just build affordable homes for people, here I mean capital A affordable, like homes that are subsidized by the state for people that need that subsidy, then, the rest of the market is fine as it is, and we don't need to do anything about that. It'll just work itself out. But the truth is that, we are currently at a state where, the market rate is higher than the market can afford. New homeowners, generally speaking, are 40 years old in Minnesota. That's the age when most people can afford to buy a new home. And, that is out of reach for most people in my generation, people in the generation, next below mine. And it is really frustrating that we are continuing to, say, oh, the market's fine, but it's not. And we all can see that if we are actually in it at all.
Prognosis for the next year's legislative session, or is it going to happen next time?
We are going to work our damn hardest on this. It is a top priority for me. And again, I think you'll see in some of these new legislators that are coming in, some of them are kind of getting into the housing space the same way I did, because they care about climate, and they're like, whoa, where's the lowest carbon footprint per capita? Oh, it's in these places where we are living more compactly. So we have new candidates that are going to likely win and come in with us and be strong housing champions because they're taking it from that lens. Others are coming in from education, and they're just like, my students don't have housing, or their families are struggling to stay in our district, and so they're being motivated by that. I think we're seeing different motivations, and if we tap into those different motivations, we'll continue to grow this coalition, and we will get there. We will get there because we can't afford not to.
Absolutely.
Inspiration from other jurisdictions. Anything to take away from the experience at other state capitals around the country? Anything you have learned about the politics or the policy?
I think it's a really good sign the League of Minnesota Cities went neutral this year. The League is a byword among everybody that does housing policy across the country. Neighbors for Neighbors is a part of the Welcoming Neighbors Network, and that is a bunch of other local folks that do similar work that we do in different states. So, they do work in Colorado, they do work in Washington, they would do work in Vermont, they do work in Montana. There's people all across the state in different kinds of situations, and in every situation, it is the League of whatever cities that is the primary opponent. And when we can start to neutralize them and work towards letting legislators know that they're not working in good faith, they do not want more homes. They will never want more homes, and it is good that the League of Minnesota Cities went neutral. I do think it means that, this Minnetonka coalition that just started, and
I like to call it the League of Minnetonka Cities. We neutralized the League of Minnesota Cities, and we got a League of Minnetonka Cities.
Right. And so, those cities in a lot of ways base a lot of their identity on who gets to live there. And, we have a long history of housing segregation and, exclusion in Minnesota and across the country. And that exclusion shows up in our zoning code. It shows up in these conversations around who gets to live where. And it's really frustrating, but it also means that we are making progress, and we are going to likely see that those, more exclusionary cities are going to continue to dig in. But hopefully we can convince legislators that their concerns are valid for them, but they don't change the fact that housing is a regional problem, and that every city needs to contribute, and that if we have a statewide set of ground rules, then everybody will know what is expected and what is possible across the state.
It's a fundamental problem that the reason you live outside of a city, you left the city to go live in the suburbs because you want to live away from people who are unlike you. You want to be surrounded by people who are in your same class, who are just like you, and it makes you uncomfortable. And so it's a problem with the politics to change that, because it's why you chose to live in the suburbs. You're destroying people's way of life, character of the neighborhood.
I would push back on that a little bit, because I think there are many, for some people that is probably true, but for many, I have a colleague who has worked for an environmental organization for a long time, and so his ability to connect with nature on a daily basis is really important to him. So and he is the hardest core I will defend every, marginalized community type of person. So I just do want to push back because I worry that type of framing does make it actually harder for us to build our coalition. And really the narratives and the arguments that I hear are precisely what Britt was talking about, is that, my kids can't live in my same community, or my parents can't move to our community because they can't find any housing that's small enough for their needs. I think getting down to that granular level helps individual legislators or even like individual city council members to feel it. And that's what we need people to ultimately do. They need to see themselves in this problem, because then once they see it as a problem, they're more likely to want to be a part of the solution.
But then we have the case where somebody thinks the ADU is for like grandma, but then it turns out the ADU is for a family transitioning out of homelessness. And they're like, oh no, we didn't mean that. So it's framing it as like this will help you and your family is maybe not as far as we need to go in people's way of thinking about this. That's
fair. And I think it is still an important step. Because we have to, we're never going to move people. So if here is the bill where we want to be and here's where we are today, like we're not going to be moving people from here to here all in one go. If we can move someone here within, a few months, that's great. We'll keep working on it. And I think that goes to what is the package that we're bringing? Like packages are valuable, for a number of reasons. And one being that like, there can be pieces in there that I, as an individual, don't like, but overall, I see that there's a problem, so I will vote for it. Because as caucuses, it is incredibly important to be voting with our team.
Maybe we could have a carve out next session that's like grandmas only, right? It's incremental, just grandmas. We're starting with grandmas. Nobody else gets housing.
That would be legal to do.
Really? Are grandmas not a protected class? What's going on with the law on grandmas?
I mean, it would be an age-based discrimination for everyone else.
Okay. Non-grandmas are a protected class, it turns out.
Yeah. It is funny, though, because we do see a lot of cities that say, like, oh, senior housing is fine, but any other kind of housing is not fine. And that can be really frustrating, especially from the perspective of, like, everybody else needs a place to live, too. And it does feel like the status quo is a little bit of grandmas only currently. But
it's not a dating app. Grandma's Only is not a dating app.
Correct.
It's a carve out. It's a zoning carve out that Katie Jones will propose next legislative session.
That is false. We are not putting that out on the internet or anywhere else.
It is a dating app.
I am not for age discrimination.
Britt, we were talking before this episode as we waited over half an hour for Katie Jones to show up. So we had a good long conversation before this started about accountability in the media for just the outright NIMBYism of some jurisdictions in Minnesota. Can you talk about that?
I mean, I would say that overall, I think we are seeing a shift in conversational tone in the media. There were 53 articles in different publications across the state in Minnesota in the last 6 months that were pro-homes, generally speaking. I think previously we've seen a lot more kind of like, oh, two sides to this coin. And I feel like this year we saw a lot more of a pro-homes message, especially from editorial and opinion pieces. I know that we've also been seeing some more kind of like questioning of like, why is Lakeville having a moratorium? Why are these cities deciding that homes should not be built there? I think it was interesting from our perspective because the Starter Homes Act does prevent cities from creating these kinds of moratoriums. It says like, hey, you have to allow this legislation to work. And cities often use moratoriums to kind of put a break and put a hold on any kind of new homes if they are seeing things that they don't like. I know that Lakeville has grown a lot, but also their housing prices have outpaced inflation, which really means that like more people want to live in Lakeville than are allowed to live in Lakeville. And that can be a good, bad problem to have in some ways. It means that they are having a lot of economic growth, but it also means that they are not growing enough to meet the amount of people that want to work there.
To the point, to your question earlier, John, about like, are we going to get this done at some point? And the more that things like that in Lakeville are happening, the more that individual legislators are going to feel pressure to do something, because more and more people are going to say, like, I can't afford to live here. My family can't afford to live here. Please do something.
Okay, you sound like an accelerationist, Katie. You're like, Lakeville is going to be on fire and it will cause the revolution.
I mean, whatever city wants to cause the revolution, I'm here for it. We just need it to happen.
Has there been enough media coverage, Katie, you think, of you bringing your baby Hans home from the hospital in a bicycle? Did that get enough media coverage?
I was pleasantly pleased with and surprised by how much coverage that got. And honestly, the main thing that I wanted, a point that I wanted to make is that we need all ages and abilities, networks, and infrastructure for people to be able to get around, including newborns. And so I hope that made the point that and helped people to open their eyes a little bit to opportunities that they hadn't maybe thought about before.
I'm kind of surprised that the hospital let you do it, because my impression of normies is that they would handcuff you and say, how dare you abuse this child by bringing them home in a bicycle. I'm surprised that you got so little pushback from hospital staff.
Yeah, no, it was wonderful. We were concerned as well, but neither my OBGYN that I normally saw had any problems with it, nor did any of my nursing staff in the delivering room have any problems with it. And I've been to several pediatrician appointments since, carrying him on the e-cargo bike and, bringing my helmet and no questions. They're just like, that's super cool. Like, they ask questions. How do you do that? How do you make it work? So I think there's a lot more curiosity now, and we are starting to normalize having kids on bikes, and that therefore we need safe infrastructure to be able to do that.
Yeah, I do think the cargo bike library has really exploded this year. Like, it's gotten way more popular, and I feel like part of that is due to you, Katie.
I mean, I have to give all the credit to Laura Mitchell. Like, that bike library is like top notch. I mean, we utilized it before we figured out which bike was going to work for us. So lots and lots of credit to Laura.
Well, Britt, I carried an entire council member on an episode of the Wedge Live podcast in a bike from the cargo bike library. So why am I not on your list of influential cargo bike celebrities?
Because I missed it.
You really missed that? We were in that anti-Minneapolis documentary during the last election, like the horrors of Minneapolis. We were like the intro to a video about the evil council member riding in a bike with the podcaster talking about stuff at open streets. Did you miss that too?
Was that Aisha Chuktai?
It was Aisha Choktai, yeah.
Okay, so I didn't entirely miss it. I think I missed that it was from the library. I thought you just had a friend that had a bike.
No, cargo bike library. And they delivered it right to open streets for me. So this episode is sponsored by the Minneapolis Cargo Bike Library. Is it still called that?
I believe it's the Minnesota Cargo Bike Library, because they're opening up a branch in Rochester.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, everybody go check out a cargo bike. They're wonderful. Is there anything else that we have to say about housing policy on the state level? Any calls to action, things that we didn't talk about?
So there's like a few other things happening at the state level. There's also the right to renew gained some good momentum this year, which is talking about, just cause eviction protections, making sure that people actually have a reason when they evict someone from their home. There's also the response to Operation Metro Surge, where we actually got some amount of $40 million in state rental assistance that passed this year. And that was really important for folks. Don't know if we talked about the housing homeowner association Bill of Rights part yet when we were talking to Katie. But that was Senate File 1750 that passed, and that had part of the Starter Homes Act in it, which is kind of how we knew how people would vote going forward on the floor if we actually get through committee. Overall, I think that there's also things like single egress that I'm pretty excited about, hopefully talking about next year, where maybe we can have more apartment buildings that are built like the ones that are in Europe and everywhere else in the world except for the United States and Canada.
So yeah, that last one is my bill this year. And I think there is a path. We're going to need to think through building support amongst the firefighting community. When we look at the amount of staffing for our ladder trucks here in Minnesota, especially Minneapolis, because that's where we really have the most ladder trucks, compared to Seattle and New York City, where they do allow single stair, that's where I think some of the rub is. So more to come on that.
Yeah, that's fair. On the other hand, we also did see from our study that passed a couple years ago that came out in the December of 2025, for the most part, as long as the sprinkler system is working, the fire is going to be put out and everybody's going to be out of the building before the fire trucks even get there, because these buildings are so much smaller than the bigger buildings.
Sounds like you want to automate firefighter jobs, Britt. You want to automate firefighter jobs?
I think they're already pretty much automated as long as you have sprinklers, but most single-family homes do not require sprinklers. Not that I think that they should, but I do think that more homes should be multifamily.
Okay, I guess we're at the end here. This has been the Wedge Live podcast. Thank you to my guests, Baby Hans, Representative Katie Jones, Brit Anbacht from Neighbors for More Neighbors. I'm your host, John Edwards. Thank you for listening.
This is a real thing. Real thing.
None of you have the balls to stop this. Stop this.
I've got plenty of time. I have nothing else going on today.
We're in the Wedge neighborhood right now.